I almost feel that I should apologise to people who are still clinging to the carcass of the idea that Donald Trump was anything other than a depraved and deranged lunatic. This show must be unbearable listening for you. Sort of just not even a very big mirror that I hold up every morning and you look in it and see a complete idiot. And I say that with great affection. You know, we've all done idiotic things in our lives, but if you're not yet ready to admit that you were a bit of an idiot when you allowed your, whatever it was, racism, misogyny, latent, a sort of fraudulent belief that you might somehow profit from climate change denial. Is there anything else that we could put on that list that sort of tickled your fancy, the way he treated women? Did you like that? Did you like that? Steve knows what I'm talking about. He's been in touch already. He says, I'm just wondering if you have any other tunes to play. I Hate Donald Trump and the Tories becomes a bit tedious when it's the only tune you play all day, every day. Listen, Steve, it's easy to get through this period of your life. You just need to let go of your support for the man who sued a woman who accused him of rape for libel and lost. The multiple felon, the man who lies about elections. If you can just let go of that, and I don't know whether you like the self-confessed sex offending more than the racism, or whether it's the racism that you like more than the misogyny, or maybe it's the climate change denial that tickles the cockles of what passes for your heart. But if you can, I promise you, mate, if you can let go of it, your life will improve, and she may even let you see the kids again. It's 4 minutes after 10. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, and we turn our attention today to people like Steve who have been categorically wrong about everything now for the best part of a decade. We are thinking of Boris Johnson, Brexit, austerity, Liz Truss, and latterly Donald Trump. We are looking at YouGov polling that shows, wait for it, 8% of Britons think the UK should be actively joining the US-Israeli attack on Iran. And we are looking at our corporate media and seeing that approximately 80 or 90% of its commentators and contributors think that the United Kingdom is somehow embarked upon a shameful or a cowardly pass. Dick Littlejohn in the Daily Mail responds to news of a school being blown up by probably American forces in Iran by being ashamed that the Brits aren't involved in that kind of activity. He's never been more ashamed in his life than in the week that we failed to join a war which began by bombing a girls' school. And these people, of course, have led the line in this country on all sorts of positions that have been all sorts of wrong. Demonstrably, provably, irrefutably wrong. Brexit, an absolute disaster. Liz Truss, an absolute disaster. Boris Johnson, an absolute disaster. Austerity, an absolute disaster. And when they dip their curdled little toes into international relations, Donald Trump, an absolute disaster. But I'm worried about something called manufactured consent. It's a well-established theory. Unfortunately, given that he has been utterly... what would the right word be? Discredited seems so mild, doesn't it, to describe people that were very, very tight with Jeffrey Epstein. But Noam Chomsky, a brilliant, brilliant thinker, was incredibly tight with Jeffrey Epstein. And unlike Donald Trump, who was also, of course, incredibly tight with Jeffrey Epstein for many, many years, Chomsky has sort of paid the price in terms of reputation and credibility. But he co-wrote a book a few years ago, I forget precisely when, called, or one of the subtitles of it was Manufactured Consent. And it's one of those things, or it was called Manufacturing Consent, the Political Economy of the Mass Media. It's published in 1988, just as I was preparing to do my A-levels, or beginning my 2-year A-level course. And it is absolutely fascinating because it speaks directly to the way in which we are cajoled and persuaded, we are gaslit and groomed into acting against our own interests. And it's not something... I mean, I'm 54 years old now, if you're newish to the programme, and I've been engaged in these kind of issues for about 21, 22 years. A bit longer, say 24 or 25. It wasn't what drew me into journalism in the first place. I wanted to be a book reviewer or a theatre critic, and then I became a gossip columnist, and after that I was a showbiz journalist, and then a brief foray as a video games reviewer. But I didn't ever think I would end up in this kind of world. And I turned up here many, many years ago, because I had a tax bill to pay and someone had suggested I might be able to do a shift for them. And I came in and I fell in love. The minute I sat behind this microphone, I fell in love. But one of the things I love most about it, I fell in love with you in a way, actually. Not just with it. No, not you. You. One of the things I love about it most is that I am constantly taken by surprise. Constantly taken by surprise. I'm constantly learning. It's odd, really, because the traditional proponents of this format never learn anything. They keep hitting the same drums and indulging the same prejudices, airing the same bigotries and making the same mistakes year after year, after month, after week after week, after day. You can spot them from a mile off. They use phrases like Trump derangement syndrome or Brexit means Brexit to disguise the fact that they're supporting something they can neither explain, articulate, justify or understand. And I've just got a horrible feeling that it's happening again with this war. Dick Littlejohn has never been more ashamed to be British, while 8% of the population think that we should be getting involved in the thing that he's deeply ashamed we're not involved in. I mean, that is an extraordinary moment, and the reason why it gives me trepidation, not because of call me Dick, but because, Dick by name, but because he represents the sort of the gristly rump of this right-wing mass media who have the loudest opinions and the tiniest understanding of issues. And I worry because is that 8% going to grow? This is the theory that is explored in Manufacturing Consent. It essentially explains how mass communication media, and it focuses on America, but where they lead, we follow, are effective and powerful ideological institutions that carry out a system-supportive propaganda fungal flipping act. Basically, they persuade people into positions that are against their own interests. Can you think of an example from recent years of a population being persuaded to vote against its own interests? I don't know, off the top of my head. Can you think of any example of... I don't know. How about being persuaded to become the first population in the history of humanity to impose economic sanctions on itself? Yeah? Got it? Yeah, thought so. How about greeting a budget that was visible from outer space as an imminent disaster for the British economy as the best thing since sliced bread, which, of course, the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph, Nigel Farage, all of them queued up to tell you that Liz Truss was an economic genius and this was finally going to deliver the sort of fillip that the country desperately needed. Fast forward about 27 seconds and we're on the precipice of unprecedented economic collapse. But remember, it wasn't the fault of Liz Truss or indeed the cheerleaders that she had in the UK media or in UK politics. It was all the fault of the woke mind virus and transgender civil servants. And of course these people still have a stranglehold on public discourse, which is one of the reasons why I love my job, because I get to point it out, and there aren't many of us, and that's not a coincidence. There aren't many of us. I get to point it out. The people who are catastrophically and categorically wrong about everything have a stranglehold on the UK media, and traditionally and historically they have managed to persuade us, the public, to do the things that are against our own interests. Now, whether it's because they are on the payroll, or because they are deluded, or because they are themselves gaslit, or because they are morally corrupt, or very, very stupid, or stubborn, mutton-headed oafs, I will never know. I mean, there can't be one explanation that explains all of them, but stick them on a list, and it will be as long as both your arms. Wrong about Brexit, wrong about Boris Johnson, wrong about COVID, wrong about Liz Truss, wrong about... austerity, and wrong about Donald Trump. And here they are now, being paid huge sums of money to be wrong about whatever the next thing is. Oh, the next thing is war. The next thing is the war in Iran. 8% of the UK public, 8% of Britons think that the UK should be actively joining the US-Israeli attack on Iran. Just shy of half think that we should be adopting a purely defensive position, shooting down drones and defending civilian areas. That number, I fear, can only really go in one direction. I look at the effort. The effort is frankly extraordinary, being put into completely ignoring public opinion and instead trying to manufacture it. It is absolutely breathtaking to me. I've never seen anything like it before, but I can't remember coverage in the early days of the Iraq War. But I think public opinion on Iraq was it not equally split? Perish the thought that it might even have been 52-48. Daily Express front page, we can't stand by and expect others to help Britain, says Kemi Badenoch, who also believes that we should stop giving benefits to children and spend all the money instead on bombs. Starmer, US must negotiate with her. Desperate and deluded is the front page of the Daily Mail. Desperate and deluded. This a position that is shared by 92% of the UK public who are against the idea that we should be joining a war against Iran. So we established yesterday beyond any doubt, and this isn't boasting or showing off or even offering an opinion, it's just counting. We established yesterday beyond any doubt that nobody knows, nobody who supports the war can tell you what it's for. Because even if they offer up an explanation, it will be contradicted 10 minutes later by the same people, by the same regime, the same administration. So let's add to the Trump regime the cheerleaders for the Trump regime, whether they're on the other side of the Atlantic or on this one. If any of them stand up and say, we need to fight this war because, then within 5 minutes somebody else will stand up and say something that makes a complete mockery of their original claims. We need to fight this war because of the nuclear capability that doesn't exist and that we also claimed we'd completely destroyed 9 months ago. We need to fight this war because of the terrible human rights abuses being visited upon Iranian civilians. Okay, so what are you doing? Oh, we're killing Iranian civilians. How does that one work? We need to change the regime in Iran. Oh, okay, that makes sense. No, we don't want to change the regime in Iran, says another member of the regime in Washington. It's God's will, is reportedly what some troops are being told by their commanding officers. We're fighting this war because Armageddon is coming and we all want to be in place when the prophecies of the Book of Revelations come to pass. I wish I was exaggerating. If you think I am, listen to yesterday's programme. And that is just a small selection of some of the reasons that have been offered up for the continuing war in Iran. And the British public at the moment are seeing through all the arguments in favour of it. So, in slightly less striking numbers are the American public. But the point here is, for the first time I can remember, on this long and catastrophic course of national self-destruction, the public are not yet persuaded to join in. They're not yet persuaded to be in favour of it. We voted for Brexit. We voted for Boris Johnson. We didn't vote for Liz Truss, but the people who told us to vote for Brexit and Boris Johnson told us Liz Truss was going to be a genius. And in many ways, we voted for austerity. We never voted for Donald Trump. But we are being told by the people who supported all of the things that we've just heard that Donald Trump would be brilliant, that he'd be brilliant for Britain. People are publicly expressing the desire that he govern our country instead of Keir Starmer. People who must love the self-confessed sex offending, or just the moral corruption, the moral bankruptcy. Is it the misogyny you like most, or is it the racism? Is it the climate change denial, or is it the self-confessed sex offending? Is it the felonies, or is it the bankruptcies? It's so sort of easy to hold this mirror up. But it can't be easy to look in it. Must be awful. And all you have to do is look away. And today, looking away from that mirror in which you see yourself in all your hideous, wrong glory, is to not support this war. To acknowledge that Keir Starmer is playing an absolute blinder. And that you are in lockstep with... if you support it, you think that we should have got involved, you're in lockstep with just 8% of the British population. 8%. So, 17 minutes after 10, you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, and I'm in many ways, I'm probably more interested in you and me trying to work out the positions that other people hold. It's gone a bit Brexity, hasn't it? Do you remember when Brexit means Brexit became a catchphrase, or let's go WTO? You just give people something they can shout to disguise the fact that they understand nothing and they can't tell you why they support the thing that they are very passionate and adamant about supporting. Vox Pops were extraordinary during that period when they actually made it to the screen. You'd have people claiming that they were casting a vote for reasons that didn't even make sense to them. As they spoke, you could see the confusion writ large upon their own faces. But they'd shout things like, Brexit means Brexit, or let's go WTO. And if you tugged the tiniest thread, the whole thing would fall apart. And it was very good and very entertaining. And it changed the fortunes of this radio show in ways that were, genuinely extraordinary and continue to be. But it wasn't that nourishing. It became a spectator sport. We were perhaps a tiny bit voyeuristic, or we indulged in schadenfreude, amused or entertained by the idiocy of our neighbours who couldn't tell us why they had voted to become part of the first population in human history to impose economic sanctions on itself. Maybe we should have spent more time then working out what was going on. And that's what I want to do today. So why is the corporate media in the United Kingdom backing a foreign war over its own democratically elected Prime Minister? Why is the corporate media in the United Kingdom supporting a deranged lunatic's quite probably illegal adventures in Iran over its own sovereignty? Why do they hate sovereignty so much? They're literally now writing columns about how in the good old days we'd follow America blindly into war regardless of the reasons or the consequences. Harold Wilson not getting mentioned as much as he should be this week because, of course, he said no when they asked him to go to war in Vietnam, and he was proved categorically right by events and by history. That's the big parallel here, that and Iraq. We'll be meeting later in the programme an MP who you may not have heard of, but you should have done, because he served in Iraq. And he is profoundly concerned about the parallels and the echoes of this march towards war. But here's the thing that fascinates me most. It's not working. It's not working. 8% of the British public sit alongside the Daily Telegraph and the Daily Mail and the Daily Express and the Sun, and to a lesser extent the Times. 8% sit along Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage and the other brain-dead warmongers. 8% of the British population. Who speaks for them? Who speaks for them? That's actually a rhetorical question, because the answer is nobody. Living in a country with a pluralistic media, who speaks for the people who aren't in the 8% that don't want a war? So here's the question. Why are they doing it?